think I have 5 minutes, right? Oh, 2 minutes. I gotta do a sound check then quick. Make sure my sound's working. All right. Looks like my sound's working. Hopefully it's not sounded weird. Let's check the filters real quick. I'm gonna have a hard time tonight, I can tell. Oh, that's interesting. It's not there. Huh. All right. I went through another crazy day, folks, so I beg your pardon, like always. Don't apologize. All right, listen, welcome to the party. My name's Nate Baumberger. This is Smash the Party. You know it's Nightcap. It's where I yell and scream about shit that bothers me. Yada, yada, yada. So you notice I'm standing because I've been sitting so much that I'm getting old and I have to fucking stand now. So I have to stand. I have a standing desk. So my room is in disaster area DEFCON 4 because I've been doing all kinds of filming projects and trying out lenses. And so ignore the background. I have this beautiful bokeh that should help blur it so you don't have to look at it and focus on my fucking speech. Anyway, listen, enough excuses. Tonight I got 3 things. I'm going to be brief. I'm going to try to get to the point. I want to talk briefly about the protests, the truckers, the Canadian truckers. I know very little, but I'm going to tell you what I think about that in general. And then I'm going to just touch on my favorite subject, which is the healthcare system. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think it's fucked up and some shit that's going on with some friends of ours. And I'm hoping I can get an interview with this person. So, I like these interviews, and I've tried to get a couple people on, and I've not really been pushing for them, but I think this person would be a great interview, and it would be enlightening. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I did get her permission, and I will talk more about that. And then I'm just going to talk about the direction because, look, I know people are like, what the fuck? But hey, I'm sticking to my pattern, a little bit behind on my blogs, but that's okay. But the point is that I need to get in this cadence where I'm doing this every night, okay? And so I want to talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to make bullshit excuses. I've been on point. I'm happy with my progress, but I think there's a couple things I'm going to do to level up. And I've been kind of holding back on this, kind of watching my gunpowder dry, if you will. Keeping it dry or whatever the fuck the cliche is. And, I think I want to start experimenting with that. I don't know why my throat's going bad on me all of a sudden, but that's what it's doing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But anyway, and then I'll try to give some gratitude. And usually people don't comment because nobody watches these lives. Again, that's another reason why I'm going to start putting out more fixed content stuff for YouTube and blah, 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 all that stuff. Let me just see what the chat's doing just in case. All right, cool. No one's there. All right. So anyway, first of all, the protests. In general, I don't agree with the position that as I understand it, that they're protesting because they don't want to get vaccinated. That's my understanding. Again, so this is not news. This is just my cursory glance of things I thought I could talk about briefly that might be interesting. And I have an interesting take on this because, look, I don't agree with their stance. I've been fully boosted, somehow escaped COVID. My wife had it. There's numerous people in my family have had it. I know people that have had it. I know people that died have had it. I've been lucky. I've been fortunate, but I still believe in the vaccine. I had a weird reaction to the vaccine when I first took it. At least that's what we think it was because we were, I was getting brain MRIs and everything because I was having this all kind of weird stuff. And I didn't talk about it because I want to scare people away from getting vaccinated. It was just happening to me. It didn't mean everybody was going to experience that. And it was very rare and it went away. It was scary, but I've talked about that in the past. I say all that because I'm fully vaccinated and I believe that my position is pretty much like if they mandate masks somewhere and someone makes a good case for it, I'm going to wear them. I don't really need to fight. It's not the Holocaust. It's not weird shit that people are saying. It's like exhausting. Like some of the hyperbole that gets kind of bubbled up into each platform. And you see the kind of the crazy fringe shit. And it's like, come on. It's not the Holocaust. So my position's been pretty clear. I don't, I'm not taking advocating for certain folks or certain positions just because I'm kind of iffy on the science and I'm just going to do what the majority decides to do or what the health experts tell me to do. And that's what I've decided. I've decided the CDC, as much as it scrambles, that I filter my information through there. And so this is just where I've come. So, again, you've seen because it's a novel virus, things have changed drastically. And so that's an argument that conservatives like to make about, the Democrats are now, loosening their mask restrictions, but enforcing them on kids. And it becomes this weird thing, right? It's fucking weird. It's like, okay, whatever. It's political now. You can see where somebody's, votes based on whether they wear a mask or not. So these people, I disagree with their position. I disagree with it, but I don't disagree with any protest, especially one. Look, I'm going to disagree with the premise of their protest. I'm going to disagree with them. I think they shouldn't have protested, but the right to protest is so important to the civil rights movement and how people protest. And so they should have every right. And the big thing that's important is a protest is meant to disrupt. And that's what it did. And so I applaud them for creating, and as I understand it, cursory knowledge, scrolling through my feed, as I understand it, their position was, there wasn't anybody hurt. And so it was nonviolent, but they fucked shit up. And quite frankly, if you look even in the history of the civil rights movement and look at some of the ways they were incriminating, including Martin Luther King himself, were because they broke ordinances that they set up kind of right away to prevent people from protesting and people from gathering. And so any kind of protest that is out there that's licensed by the state probably isn't going to be very disruptive. And so I am again, this is how we change things. I'm pro nonviolent protests. People want to bring up all the crazy shit that happened with the BLM and the white Antifa kind of crowd that was kind of planted from just craziness. Look, I've waxed poetic about that whole thing, but so I would advocate that anyone that disrupts, it's going to happen. It's going to be disruptive. And that's why that protest typically gets attention, is because it disrupted something. Now, if people aren't getting hurt, I'm still okay. I don't agree with property being damaged either. But my point is, I'm totally fine with anything that's disruptive. And sometimes things happen that have to happen, or unfortunately happen, that become disruptive, that then trigger other things from happening, sometimes good and bad. But either way, there's an action that follows from a protest, if it's a good protest. If it's a protest where you're talking about, people getting fucking canceled. Like, really, come on, canceled. Stop saying canceled. That's so fucking bizarre to say people are getting canceled when they're just getting a couple weeks of publicity and it's free and it's cheap and Whoopi gets a vacation and whatever. The only person that got canceled is fucking Colin. You know what I mean? Fucking, that's the real cancel. But anyway, so I would argue that, look, they created some havoc. People are pointing to supply chain issues and things like that. And so I'm not going to look, it's annoying. And of course it affects me in some way. But I'm saying, they have a right to protest, and good for them that they did one that disrupted things and got national attention, and that's how it has to happen. And you have to be supportive of that method, which is integral to our democracy and how we're supposed to function, not storming fucking buildings and, talking about hanging our politicians like we're some fucking cretins. Anyway, so that's my position on that. That's all I know. And you probably look at me like, dude, you didn't really talk about this issue or that issue, or there's some compliance about. I don't know shit. So I'm just telling you, though, looking at a protest that gets national news, even in something I disagree with, is often, it's a powerful protest. And here's a counter argument, which is piss people, conservatives off, because I'm saying, hey, good for them for pushing a certain way. But then there's also something that the opposite can happen, is when your protest becomes kind of this boring thing that nobody wants to cover. The March for Life isn't getting as much publicity anymore because they're not really doing it. It's organized, methodical, approved by the state, essentially, march. And so I'm saying that that's less effective than it gets all the pro-lifers out, but like you're not really disrupting anything. But like a day, and I guess everyone knows about it. So it just, again, I'm not suggesting that I'm not even advocating that I want to see better protests from the pro-life, anti-choice people, but I'm saying that there is, there's a media play in all these protests that has to happen in order to get action. And so if you get national news and you do it non-violently, I have to say that was successful in some manner, especially even if you didn't get what you wanted, you certainly brought attention to it. People are talking about truckers. I kind of get this when I kind of go in and out of the social media bubbles that I have. I kind of come in and I'm looking at it from another perspective, and I'm seeing kind of like, this people getting upset about the truckers and who's getting upset about the truckers. You kind of start to get this kind of, the spirit, the spirit of the zeitgeist of like the conversation, or what's trending, if you will. In my own mind, I'm starting to feel this kind of sentiment. And I'm kind of like, all right, is that a story I'm interested in, or is it going to be an easy divide? And so I'm interested in that story just because of the fact that, of course, it's COVID folks, anti-vax people, which, by the way, statistically, science and that whole science, they understand that there's a certain amount of the population that's always going to be anti-vax. It's built into kind of how they go through and talk about their distribution models. So it's not that foreign. It's something we have to understand is going to happen. I'm not anti-vax. I'm just saying, I'm not saying they should be, kind of let off the hook in many ways, especially if they're clogging up the hospitals. But I do say that their right to protest is protected, and that comes in direct intersection with the civil rights movement, and how protests that are legalized typically are they don't get the news, or they don't get the attention. They don't cause a ripple. And so I'm totally in support of their right to protest. So that's my position on that. I don't know. I thought it was maybe different than maybe people might be like, oh, you're anti-vax, and I mean you're pro-vax, and I might be like, but still, yeah, of course I think it's stupid, but they did it. They made a ripple, and people are talking about truckers that I know have no understanding of the trucking industry or how the logistics work, but that's where the new expert is lately on logistics of transportation and the CDL rules and whatever, how it applies. I'm telling you, it's just fucking bizarre. People read 2 articles and they're like, well, this is what happens. And I do the same thing, right? I'm doing it here, but I try to put a disclaimer on the shit that I'm saying. It's not, go verify it yourself. This is entertainment / motivational shit that I'm doing here. And I'm trying to inspire people to get off their ass and change some shit. Anyway, so that's my thing on there. I'm hopefully not going to dry out. This thing's a little too high for me. It's going to drop. Stand on my toes. All right, there we go. So healthcare is always like fucking, that's my second point. I just want to talk about the protests, get my position on that. Then I want to talk about healthcare. Because healthcare is interesting in that even though, you don't really know how bad it is until you really need it. And then, people see it and hear it, and everyone knows they have somebody that has cancer or a mental health issue or something that can kind of milk a family dry. Everybody knows it. But we kind of keep clogging along, accepting the status quo, buying into the partisan divide that they create that essentially allows us to fight over peanuts as opposed to like making a real system. And so you and I might have these things that we see fixed, or maybe you're healthy and you're in your 40s, 30s, 20s, 18, whatever. You have to be 18 or older to watch this on Facebook, apparently. But you probably may or may not have encountered the healthcare system, but it's shit. We all know it's shit, and it's fucking weird. And sometimes you got to talk to like somebody in Ohio about the prescription that you just got from your doctor that you've known for 20 years because they're not sure they want to cover it. And then you got to cross your fingers that, you know, the recommendations are being made based off of your insurance situation, not your health. So just stuff that's obvious to other countries. Pre-existing conditions aren't even a thing. Literally, if you Google pre-existing conditions in Wikipedia, in the article, they start talking about in the context of the United States healthcare system. So it's something we made up here to fit into our capitalist system where you profit from everything. And so it's fucked up, right? Well, it's really fucked up when you've already got a fucked up, you know, you've already got kind of the system geared towards not being friendly to you for whatever reason. Maybe your gender, or maybe you have some kind of identity issue with your gender. And I'm not sure of the right terminology. I'm hoping to learn more about how to talk about this. But, you know, a friend of ours who, you know, was in the paper, and I didn't want to claim, you know, to be a friend, but this is my wife's friend, somebody my wife talks to on a regular basis, who went through addiction, and her story's public. But she's now, you know, she's going through this just transitioning place for her. And she is now struggling with these health restrictions that kind of tie into this pre-existing condition that needed to be met before certain parts of the surgery are covered, and so forth and so on. And it just breaks my heart to think about that shit, because that's such a, here's a person who shared their story publicly, and they're, you know, now going through this major transitional place in their life where they're coming to find their truth and live their truth. She's living her truth. And this is, you know, it's completely something that may be foreign to people, because it's foreign. It's not something that it's hard for me to imagine, just like it's probably hard for them to imagine being anything else. It's just kind of how it works. But it breaks my heart to see that, like, they're going through this major change, and they want to, you know, find their truth. And then they're having to deal with this kind of weird stuff that just kind of makes no sense and isn't logical. And it's all based on profit and kind of preventing certain things. And in my opinion, it's kind of, it seems to me to be pretty blatantly kind of offensive. And people get all riled up when you start talking about identity politics. But this is the kind of thing that you don't understand unless you are living that life or being that person. And so I don't know what the fuck it's like to have to, you know, to do all the things and go through all the things that they have to go through to deal with the things, the turmoil that's going inside, because they're seeing that people aren't kind of receptive, and all this fight and the fear. I'm just kind of putting myself in some place. So if if I'm totally speaking out of line, I don't have any clue. But what I do know is that it just doesn't make sense to me to make it difficult for these people to live the life they want. And so that includes our health system. I mean, what the fuck? I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm done living, you know, this lie or whatever. And by the way, I'm not putting that on her or anybody. I'm not calling it a lie, but this struggle to come out, then and be yourself, and then you finally do it. And then now you've got to the system that's basically saying, yeah, well, we're not really even designed for that. And you're left, you know, kind of struggling to pay these bills. And I mean, this is like, it just weighs down on me just to think what that would be like. And perhaps that's, again, what a lot of people I say in this country don't know how to do. They just don't know how to see it. They all, you know, we have all these religions that talk about this, but no one really like, all right, what's it really feel like to be a trans person who's going through, you know, this change, just came through addiction, now is clean and working on finding their truth, and now they have to deal with all these things and these roadblocks. It just makes no sense based on profit. So to me, there's common sense things that we can do that they try to do in the ACA. It's all kinds of shit. But I want to know more about the situation. I don't want to speak out of turn for this person, and I'm hoping that this will be something that she would. You know, one of the criteria was that I can't have any drinks for the interview. And I was like, what? Maybe she saw a couple where I had a couple drinks, but you know, for real, you know, this is serious business, and I want to get down to stuff. And so I laughed, but it's appropriate, I guess, based on my posts. I don't know. Anyway, but it's something I would totally honor, and I want to respect her sobriety as well. So the point is, though, I just when I hear stories like that, that's, if you watch this show before, you saw me talk about this before, I talk about those personal things that I have had to deal with, or have conversations with people that have had to deal with these things. When you do, you start to realize, like, yeah, it's really honky dory until shit goes wrong or you need it. And then it's just bureaucracy after, bullshit. And look, other systems aren't perfect, but again, I don't understand why people are scared to improve on a system. I'm even talking about capitalism in general. I mean, people like, it's not, we have poverty. Listed the most poverty. Okay, great. But can we do better? Can we do better? Come on. The fuck? We can do better. There's algorithms. We could run simulations. I mean, all kinds of shit. How can you get, there's so many things you could do to provide like models that people could look at and say, okay, look, these are things that could happen if we do these things. And now all of a sudden everybody gets lifted up. I mean, it's Star Trek-y, I guess. But it's this idea that poverty is just something built into the system for me. And that's the way I believe it. It's kind of made so that you can, one bourgeois can kind of maximize or optimize their time on earth through other people's labor, I guess. And that's the ideal thing. And I'm oversimplifying it, but I mean, come on, that's really what capital is. That's where the root word comes from. Cattle. We talked about this before, blah, blah, blah. All right, maybe you learned something today, maybe you didn't. I know I'm trying to teach you something today, so hopefully my perspective's at least enlightening you in some fucked up way. But I want to talk more about this person and or this situation with healthcare, and just I think this is a specific time where it kind of intersects the position where it's hard to understand what someone's going through unless you actually hear it from them or talk to them or you're them. And in many cases, I think the trans community in general is kind of not heard, even when the Dave Chappelle thing was going on. And I made my point. Dave Chappelle has every right to do it. But you know what? He doesn't know what it's like to go through those things. And those jokes might be funny and someone could have laughed. But again, that my position is that you really don't know how you're offending somebody. And so it's like the same thing that happens to me all the time as a black person. People say things. It's like, there's one person who recently I've been hanging out with that says things a couple times. There's one or two times where I'm like, you know what, I'm probably going to say something soon, but it's a new relationship and I'm trying to figure that out, whether that's a flaw or if it's a joke, or because I'm working with folks that are doing a lot of kind of different stuff. So it just surprised me. But anyway, I'm not a snowflake with that kind of stuff. I used words before. But I also think that it's hard to understand what someone's going through or make those jokes when you don't either know the person or you really don't understand kind of the plight of why those words or those things or those jokes aren't funny. So, look, I'm not going to redo that whole spiel on Dave Chappelle, but my point is that I feel like I'm open-minded about things, and I try to be. I'm flawed. You know that I always talk about my shit, how I'm even going through shit right now I'm trying to fix. So, I got my issues, but I like to understand other people's issues and what's kind of affecting them, especially when it intersects with healthcare, because healthcare to me is like the game changer for everybody. It's also the most conservative approach to fixing the problem. Like, there's math behind it. So it's just one of those things where it's like, what are we waiting for? Other than people to die and kind of lose out on their opportunity to thrive, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness and freedom and all the shit that they're talking about, but they're really not helping people to get. That's why I'm so pro healthcare. All right, so hoping that this little spiel didn't ruin my opportunity to interview this person, because I think she'd be a great witness to kind of the issues that she's going through, and I think it's a new perspective, and I want to try to do new things like that. And get stuff out the door that's not just me ranting, because I am pissed off, but I think my experience, look, people are going to start to realize that my experiences, while vast, they relate to a lot of people, but there's other experiences out there that relate to people that will still move me and still fucking make me get fired up on this show. So anyway, that's why I want to kind of end on that. So I talked about the protest. I talked about the health care with the trans friend of my wife's that I think is very sad because of the, just how we have the system built. And I want to just touch on the directions because, somebody mentioned to me recently that, it sometimes appears that I'm rudderless. And I used that word. I threw that into the lexicon. And so I can get that. And I know, kind of the way my brain works is a little different in every single thing I'm doing. And now I'm doing something public so people can see just kind of how things work. But I like to describe it like, I kind of bounce around at trying to move the whole ship forward. And it takes me a little longer to get there. But most people kind of do this sequential, and it's helpful and it's awesome. Trust me. There's times where I do get things done sequentially and I plan things. But a lot of times when I'm really trying to push something, I really just try to absorb as much information I can and push forward. So there is a time and a place for me to execute. And that's why I kind of gave myself a lot of time this year by saying, hey, this year's the year of experimentation. I don't want to boost on Facebook. That's great. I can get a lot of views, but it's not helping me to actually see what value I'm providing because I can pay X and get this many views, and Facebook just has the ability just to put that out there in front of. It's great, right? I mean, it's great marketing, and you're thinking, why don't you do it? It's also money that I know that when I boost things, I can get X value out of it. And so I can easily say to somebody, here's what the numbers I'll get. But the problem is, again, I don't want to become a slave to those things just like everyone else is. And it's more complicated than that. But that's kind of why I'm just staying away from Facebook too. Plus it's another expense when I can spend money doing other stuff and spending money on a camera and other equipment. So anyway, but the direction though, that's kind of a fair statement. And I haven't been as public about where I want to go. I talked about the big picture, which is to change hearts and minds so we can make shit fucking better for people. Like get shit better and ignore the fucking party bullshit lines that both parties pitch. Obviously I'm leaning on a Democrat side right now because they're not batshit crazy and they didn't give us Trump. We know that. I just have to put that out there every fucking time. People are like, oh, I don't know what party you're in. Look, I'm a fucking Democrat. And Republicans are fucking still insane. But the direction where I want to go is this year's just going to it's going to feel like that rudderless a little bit. It's going to feel like things are, my biggest promise to you is that I get as many blog posts as I can as I promised. And I get out here on time and get a fucking cadence because look, this is a small audience, but I want to, as this thing grows, I need it to be refined and I need to have things in order. And so you've seen me, do a whole Instagram without sound, all kinds of crazy shit. But, this is where kind of, I have to continue to say to you guys, look, this is what I love doing. As soon as I get behind this mic, I'm like ready to go and I can keep talking. Besides the fact that my mouth will run out of saliva eventually. But my point is that I enjoy this. I feel like it's somewhere where I can emote in a way and I can kind of express myself. And also I can stick to things that fire me up inside and make me frustrated. And also share things that hopefully will be good things as we grow. But, this year is the year where I'm going to try the shit that I was kind of messing around with behind the scenes, but I now have a better camera. I now have the sound equipment. I now have a colored light. I have lenses. I have all kinds of stuff now where the equipment buying process is over and the learning process is kind of just continuing on where I'm trying to learn how to use these gimbals and all this stuff so that I can start creating better content. Again, it's, people are going to argue oh, you just got to do it. I get that. And Gary Vee talks about that too, but there's also a side of it that works for me where it's just I keep refining and doing it in public. There's a lot of stuff that's going behind the scenes where I'm just kind of pushing that whole thing forward. And I'm gaining knowledge across a lot of different things, but it's adding to the kind of focus of where I want this to be, which is a platform. We have the channel. I mean, Vice, sure, but not Vice stories like that. Literally action, an action platform. We're just fucking firing people up. So I'm sharing shit with you because when I hear rudderless, I get it. But I have to say that the vision's here. And, I've articulated it in several places on my website. I've been talking about it for a while. I like truth. I don't like to be gaslit. I don't like fucking people punching down. It's kind of basic shit here. Fight the power kind of shit. It's not new. What I bring to the table is I have this engineering background that is a problem-solving kind of superpower that helps you to learn to look at things holistically and say, all right, where's the failure points? How do we fix this without what's our scope of solutions that we have, instead of just looking at going, all right, which side are you on? And I think that's what I'm going to hopefully try to bring to the table as this evolves. And I love fucking teaching too. I love them when people are like, yeah, I learned something on this show that I didn't know about. And so, I'm trying to bring a little of that flavor to it too, and then spice it up with, the F-bombs and the pissed off rages and the Alex Jones wannabe kind of epic rants that I've have to edit and clip and censor because they're horrible. But the point is that all this stuff is important for kind of my getting to a certain level where I'm putting out content that can compete with some of the best content out there. And again, you see stuff goes viral that doesn't take produced content. It's not my angle. It's my angle is to try to get something out there in an informational way that people can stick to, listen to, and put it on right before they go to bed or whatever, and they can get some fucking knowledge, something that's firing them about the system they live in. And if they give a fuck and they're true patriots, they'll open their ears or wallet and they'll subscribe to Smash the Party or buy a shirt or whatever. But in all seriousness, like that's going to be evident as you see me go on. If you started with me from the beginning when I was just yelling and screaming behind my MacBook Pro 720 webcam, then this is kind of, where it's going. But for those folks that kind of just catching on, there's a big picture play here, and some of this stuff is just me refining, getting to the point where I'm competent and I can stand there and truly face off against someone like Ben Shapiro, which I know I could do now. The point is, I don't have that kind of pull to sit there in front of him and make fun of him like I want to, just because, I've said it before, he's a word salad smart guy. He just uses big words and puts them together, and people are just kind of wowed by it as opposed to actually like deciphering the meaning. I'm telling you, it's like a weird word trick he does. And people are like, he crushed this person. Candace Owens, somebody was suggested that she, and again, these people are younger than me. But they're the new voices that are out there just spewing nonsense. And so I'm not punching down, in my opinion, on Candace Owens or Ben Shapiro. I'm punching up and I'm saying, hey, you guys got a platform. You're fucking wrong. And, so those are the type of people that are doing it on the right. They're fully funded. They've got a huge audience on Facebook. If you don't know who the fuck they are, you can YouTube Candace Owens. They're entrepreneurs, they're blah, blah, blah. They're entrepreneurial and, innovative. And I have to respect anyone that gets their foot in the game. Stand-up comics, fucking hard as shit. Anybody that's out there putting themselves in front of an audience and trying to figure out how to get content that they're going to listen to, it's fucking balls hard. So I respect everybody in the game. But I don't think the people in the game are the best that we got. So I'm going to fucking I'm going to become better, and I want to fucking throw my hat in the ring, motherfuckers. So that's what we're doing. We're going to try to change hearts and minds, but I got to get some fucking beef. I got to get some spice. I got to get some juice. And that's going to take your friends, your strangers, people that don't know me from following and believing in this whole thing. And that's going to take getting people fired up. And so there's a direction. It's a motivation. This is, I always like to think of my time at UPS where I had to give these little PCMs. Hopefully I'm not giving company secrets, but they were pre-sort meetings. I think they were called pre-communication meetings. You had to be like 3 minutes, and they had this whole thing where you had to do these 3 points. And so I got really good at giving these little 3-point things where every day I was just like beefing my team up with 3 minutes. I kind of stayed on point, and I got really good at it. And so I like to think that every day, the reason why my teams did so well was not only was I a fantastic fucking communicator and manager, but I think those PCMs were so important that I actually brought that into my sales organizations when I was sales manager. So that's where I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about this platform where I can communicate small tidbits of information eventually that will be used to fucking talk about different concepts and be this platform where I can yell and scream and probably still require you to be 18 or above because, I say adult things, I guess, whatever that means. But anyway, so look, that sounds probably more rudderless when you learn what the fuck, dude. But the point is that there is a plan. All the technology that I've done here is mine. I built all this stuff, open source, but let's just say I launched it. I built some of the stuff. I customized some templates. I'm not going to make it sound like I'm hacking away on this thing all the time, because that's the last thing I want to do right now. But the direction of where we're going is to grow this thing. And this year is going to be the year we're going to play around and we're going to see what we can do. We're going to try new things. We're going to utilize the new equipment that we've got to try to get this thing to the quality that we can actually kind of present and start snipping it up and putting stuff on YouTube and all the shit that we have to do. There's a whole engine that goes behind this. And if you get to a certain point, it can be something that you can live on. So, my goal is to get to this point where I can make an income on this somehow. And I'd be happy with $50,000 a year. I'm really not looking to be a YouTube sensation, but I'd like to get to the point where I actually can make a difference in the folks that are listening. And I know for a fact there's people that watch this that kind of might not agree with everything I say, but actually, appreciate another perspective. So I think there's a lot of people that give a fuck about that without hearing some filtered bullshit that goes through a party PR firm and then funnels through MSNBC or CNN or Fox or whatever the fuck you're watching these days. Anyway, so look, I'm going to wrap. I wanted to kind of stick to my 3 points, which was kind of my signature move back in the day. And I want to do that more, but I also wanted to be concise and hit the protests. Look, their right to protest. They made a bang. I don't agree with it, but apparently it was, if I was wrong, you can leave a comment. More F-bombs. Thanks, Jess. And then I know, sometimes I'm going to bring the spice when I bring the spice. Sometimes I bring it, sometimes I don't. And today I was kind of subdued a little bit because this whole healthcare thing just fired me up. And I was talking about it right before I got on here with my wife and trying to get this set up. And so that definitely takes the wind out of my sails. When I'm feeling for somebody, I'm like, fuck. Yeah, I can drop F-bombs, and I want to make the story appropriate too. So look, the protests, the health care for trans folks in general, for everybody until you need it. And then direction. We're good. We're going to get there. And appreciate the comment, Jessica. Appreciate the support. Thanks for wearing the shirt in your profile. It's dope. But anyway, so we're going to be back on tomorrow at 10:30. Look, I'm also kicking around the time. People aren't liking the time. I don't really look at my views or who's watching during the lives. I should. I don't really care, again, as much as I did last year, because this year is more of a year to play. Look, and here's the other thing I want to put out there. If you look at the track record for some of these folks that have these huge audience, they didn't just come out of nowhere. So they put, Joe Rogan's been in the game for years. These guys have been in the game for years. And so it takes time to get a critical mass where you can actually kind of level up to certain things. And so I'm patient. And so, you guys be patient, keep supporting me. Dude, I don't want to fucking work anywhere else. I want to do this. I want to fucking make this work. I'm excited about it. I can see my future. I can see how this can be fun and a way where I can make a difference and be something I'm proud of. And so I'm going for it. So that's my show for today. I'm not going to say anything else. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 10:30. And we'll hopefully, that might be, if I do the interview, I might do it during the day. So I might actually play a pre-recorded one tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see how the interview goes. We'll see how it goes. But I think it'd be good. And I think you guys will find it totally interesting as hell. All right. So that's all I got for tonight. Peace. I'm out.